Yo, what's up, y'all? It's Cone back here again tonight with another episode and the first episode of the season of After the Buzzer. It's great to be back. If you don't know what this series is, it's basically just game recaps some nights during the NBA season. I try to do it most nights. I will recap the NBA games, especially when there are big matchups, and I'll go through at least a little bit of each game. Some games, if there's just nothing that happened, I'll talk about for maybe 5 seconds, but I try to hit the big things to kind of give you a recap of the NBA action in case you missed it, or even if you watched it, kind of just give my thoughts on some things that happened, some of the most important things to look at or keep in mind from these games, my takeaways, stuff like that. And like I said, there are only a couple of games tonight. It was NBA opening night, so we had two really big matchups, as we typically do on NBA opening night. The first one was the Milwaukee Bucks versus the Brooklyn Nets. As the title of this video states, it was kind of just a big statement game for Milwaukee. The Bucks, as the defending champions, got their rings tonight, and they defended home court like they were the NBA champions. They came out, they destroyed the Nets, up 12 after the first quarter, continued to build that lead into the second half, and by the end of this game, it wasn't even close, winning by 23, 127 to 104. They just looked dominant in like every aspect of the game. They're really what shone through for me with the Bucks here was their chemistry, especially when you looked at it compared to the Brooklyn Nets chemistry, which just isn't there yet, which is to be expected. They have even Kevin Durant and James Harden, their two big stars, haven't played that many games together as part of this team. They're without Kyrie Irving, and they have a lot of new pieces to integrate. They're still figuring out rotations. They had Patty Mills, who had a great game, by the way. He's a Sixth Man of the Year candidate. You had LaMarcus Aldridge playing. Blake Griffin's kind of figuring out a new role. Bruce Brown, who was a big part of the rotation last year, really didn't even play, which I was kind of shocked. I thought he would have played. They put James Johnson out there, who's a new player as well. There was just Nick Claxton made a start, and to be honest, he didn't play great. I'm someone who really believes in Nick Claxton, so I think he'll be better, but this just was not a good game for him. Going up against Giannis, it's tough. But the Nets just didn't feel like they had their chemistry, and they looked gassed from like minute one. They weren't getting back on defense. Their transition defense was terrible, and against a team like the Bucks that can kill you in transition, whether Giannis runs up the court or they catch and shoot a three on the drive on the transition bucket, they're going to get a bucket somehow in transition, and you have to stop them. Drew Holiday was cooking before he left the game around the halfway point with a heel contusion. Hopefully he's all right. He was on fire tonight. I mentioned Giannis, the reigning finals MVP, and if you watched my video earlier about my predictions for this season, I picked him to win MVP this year, and he made me look like a genius in game one. 32 points, 14 rebounds, 7 assists in just 31 minutes of action. He was a monster offensively, defensively, shooting shots with a lot of confidence. His free throw routine doesn't take a million years anymore. He sped that up even, and I think that's going to contribute to him being a better free throw shooter. He shot better than Kevin Durant from the free throw line tonight. Giannis was all over the court. He picked up right where he left off, dropping a 50 bomb in the NBA Finals to win it and win the Finals MVP. I think this is going to be a massive year from him. And similarly with him, I think this is a big year for the Milwaukee Bucks. I know, it sounds dumb to say that for a defending champion team, but I feel like out of any team that's the defending champions, I really haven't seen anyone pick them to repeat, really, outside of like Bucks fans and maybe a couple niche NBA media outlets. Most people are picking the Lakers and the Nets, and to be honest, I picked those two to make it to the finals in my predictions video. I did, however, say that that is assuming Kyrie comes back, and if he isn't back, that I would pick the Bucks to win the Eastern Conference. They showed why the Nets need Kyrie. The Nets became super reliant on jump shooting in this game. Kyrie Irving is by far their best attacker of the rim, an incredible layup package at the rim, his handles, his ability to break down defenders in front of him and get to the rim, whether that's to drive and kick or just force the Nets or force their opponents to really protect the rim. In this, it felt like it wasn't even really necessary. There was very few times where they drove to the basket. Kevin Durant had to settle for a lot of really tough jumpers, which he hit a lot of them. It's Kevin Durant. He had 32, 11, and 4. Another person that a lot of people picked to win the MVP award, and he showed that he definitely can do that in this game. But this team missed Kyrie. They did. And they're going to miss him all season up until either he gets vaccinated or somehow he's able to play. They miss his offensive production. They're still a really good team. This is game one. I'm not saying that the Nets are going to fall off. They're not a playoff team or whatever. They're still a contender. But they definitely do miss Kyrie, and they've definitely got to figure out their roles, which is kind of a common theme over the course of tonight. We saw it again with the Lakers, which I will get to in a second. But this was a statement from the Bucks. They showed that we are the defending champions. The NBA still runs through us until someone proves otherwise. And for right now, the Bucks, they looked dominant. Like I said, drilling open threes, chemistry was crazy. Where the Nets were getting killed in transition opportunities, the Bucks were sprinting back every player on the court. Everyone was contributing in some way. Chris Middleton had 29 and 3, 10, 4, and 6 from Grayson Allen, who I thought was a really under the radar pickup for them. 20 for Pat Connaughton, 15 for Jordan Nwora, who is a bucket. Shout out to my brother at Ninja Bands on Twitter, because he's for the longest time been a Jordan Nwora kind of truther. He's always believed in him, and he's got a 99 shot tendency. He has that Michael Porter Jr., J.R. Smith, I'm just going to shoot the ball mentality, and he drilled enough for 15 points. Thanasis Antetokounmpo had some solid run. This Bucks team is injured. Without Drew Holiday, missing Dante DiVincenzo as well. They're missing some guys that they would typically have in their rotation, and they still put it together. This was also Bobby Portis, who was a great bench piece for them. They didn't have him either. And despite all of that, everyone stepped up, similarly to the way that the Bucks team did it all last playoff run. Giannis missed time. Brook Lopez stepped up in that game. I believe it was game 5 against the Hawks, where he had a monster game. Chris Middleton stepped up when Giannis was out. This team is great at stepping up when the player in front of them goes down. And it showed a lot tonight. This team is a cohesive unit with a lot of chemistry. The Nets weren't. And that is going to be something that's always been something that's been kind of a concern with the Nets, is how do they build that chemistry when a lot of players are injured, players are resting, players are missing time? How are they going to build that chemistry to beat a team like the Bucks, especially without Kyrie Irving? And I guess now we'll see. It's going to be interesting to see what Steve Nash does with rotations. Like I said, Bruce Brown really didn't play, and I think he should. Cam Thomas is a guy that a lot of people believe in. Paul Millsap played like 5 minutes. Javon Carter played 19. I don't like that. James Johnson played 21, and he was just bad in those 21 minutes. We'll see what Steve Nash does, but for right now, the Bucks kind of just reminded the league, and especially the Eastern Conference, that the NBA runs through them. Next, Golden State Warriors against Los Angeles Lakers. Another game where a favorite for the conference lost. The Golden State Warriors came out and won 121-114, and it was kind of a lot of the similar things that I was talking about. The Warriors just really were kind of... First of all, for most of this game, it felt like the Warriors should have been getting blown out. When we look at the Lakers stat lines, Anthony Davis, 33, 11, and 2 on really efficient shooting. LeBron James, 34, 11, and 5 on, once again, really efficient shooting. They both looked incredible tonight. There's no reason the Lakers should lose a game like this when those two go off. For the Warriors, Steph Curry was really inefficient. He did have a triple-double with 21, 10, and 10, but he shot terrible. He shot like 2 of 8, 2 of 9 from 3, shot way under 50% from the field. It wasn't a good Steph Curry game by his standards, and they still won. Wiggins only had 12. Draymond had a classic Draymond stat line with 6, 8, and 6 assists. Jordan Poole was probably the biggest player for them tonight with 20 points, 2 rebounds, and 3 assists. My most improved player pick, looking good to start off. Damian Lee had 15, Bielitsa had 15. I'm a monster with him in 2K. He's like one of my 2K go-to guys, so it's cool to see him actually hoop on the court. 12 for Andre Iguodala, 6 for Juan Toscano Anderson. They were kind of doing it by committee a lot of the night, and compare that to the Lakers, who were 2 top-heavy players. Like, when you look at those Lakers stat lines, you look at these Warriors stat lines, you would not expect the Warriors to win most of the time. And they did. They just pulled it out. Their ball movement looked great. It looked like they had an offensive system that they knew, they understood. Even if Steph wasn't shooting well, he kind of deferred more to a playmaking role, ending up with 10 assists, let Jordan Poole take some shots. The ball was just getting spread around really evenly, and that was a big departure from what we saw last season, where the Warriors were so reliant on Steph Curry, and that's why I feel better about this team going into the season. I predicted them to be the 4 seed in the Western Conference, especially when Klay comes back. This team's going to be lethal. You have shooters all over the court. You have a lot more guys that can produce on a consistent basis than you had last season for the Warriors. Steph is going to be Steph. This game was an outlier for him, and a bad game by Steph's standards is still a 20, 10, and 10 triple-double. It's Steph Curry. He's going to be perfectly fine. This team, as they get healthier and get more guys coming in, they're going to be really difficult to stop on any given night, and that is due to a lot of the way that the guys that aren't Steph Curry or maybe Klay Thompson or Draymond Green, the outside guys are going to step up. Jordan Poole's going to have a lot bigger role. He showed that tonight. He is going to be an X factor for them every single night in this season, and I think he's going to do a great job of it. I think he's going to be near a 20-point per game scorer up until Klay Thompson comes back, and even when Klay comes back, Jordan Poole should stay in the starting lineup because I think he's going to earn that. I think he's going to be completely deserving of that, whether that means you move Wiggins to the bench or you play Draymond at the 5. I think Poole will deserve to stay in the starting lineup. This Warriors team is a lot better than last year's team. Some people said they weren't. Some people said they didn't quite see the difference. This game shows you the difference. Next, with the Lakers, they've got some things to figure out. Like I said, Anthony Davis, 33-11-2, LeBron, 34-11-5. They were both monsters, ridiculous. This looked like the Laker duo that we saw in their championship run, and if they play like this all season, it's going to be hard for any team in the West to beat them. The problem was the other guys, mainly my guy Russell Westbrook. As you know, Russell Westbrook is my favorite player of all time. If you didn't know, now you know. He was bad tonight. He really, really struggled. 8 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, awful shooting, turning the ball over. It just wasn't a typical Russ night. This isn't what you expect from him. And I think a lot of that has to do with they have to figure out their roles. A lot similar to the Nets, but even more so. Because in this game, you had your top 2 guys go off. You should not lose games where those 2 players have those big performances. DeAndre Jordan had 2 points, 2 rebounds, 1 assist. He shouldn't be playing a lot. He played 13 minutes. I still think that's too much. AD needs to start at the center position because things happen so much better when he was at the center position. It opens the floor a lot more. Things get kind of crowded when you have DeAndre Jordan on the court. LeBron James was shooting the lights out from 3, so maybe he's going to be a better shooter this season. Kent Bazemore hit a couple of threes, but he only had 8 points. Melo had 9. He was decent. Rondo had 3. Monk had 6. Dwight had 5. Avery Bradley, it took way too long to get him on the court. When he came in, he made an immediate impact offensively and defensively. I don't know why he wasn't playing more. That's one thing I think they need to figure out, and they really need to figure out what is Russell Westbrook's role. Something that I liked a lot as I was getting ready to record this video, I was watching a little bit of the Inside the NBA show after the games, and Charles Barkley was talking a lot about how he would run Russ with the bench lineups, and I think that makes a lot of sense. Give Russ the opportunity to play make, be the ball handler, because there were a lot of possessions tonight where Russ was just sitting in the corner. He was taking catch and shoot corner threes. That's not his game. His game is to attack the basket, get others involved, play make for others, and I think they do need to use him a lot more with bench lineups. Maybe you have LeBron off the court and you put Russ in. Something that they did multiple times tonight, which I don't think makes any sense, is Russ and Rondo on the court at the same time. That does not make any sense. That should almost never be happening. It should be very rare that you have those 2 on the court. The reason you brought in Westbrook and Rondo were to be extra playmakers alongside LeBron James, because a lot of times last season, he was the only one that could create shots for a lot of guys. Why would you have those 2 on the court at the same time? You don't need both of their playmaking. They're both good playmakers. Russell Westbrook just led the league in assists. He can do it on his own. And when he's playmaking, Rondo's not going to hit catch and shoot threes. He doesn't need to be on the court for that. I don't understand why they did that. I think Malik Monk should have played more. I think Avery Bradley should have played more. It just felt like they didn't have things figured out. And that is to be expected for a Lakers team that only retained a few players. The only players from last season on this team that played tonight were LeBron and AD. And those were the 2 players that balled out. You have Talen Horton-Tucker, who was not here for this game, also Kendrick Nunn. I don't think Rondo will get as many minutes when Nunn comes back. And when THT comes back, he's also probably going to take some of those minutes from some of the other guys. But it's going to be a lot to figure out because when you have guys coming in and out, this team is old. So guys are going to get injured. Guys are going to need rest. They're going to be shifting rotations a lot of the season. So it's going to be up to Frank Vogel to figure out what works. And I think that's going to be kind of difficult. A lot of people talked about how the fit wasn't great on this roster. And it's not amazing, but I feel like these players are talented enough to figure it out. But coming into this game, they did not have it figured out. And now when they look at this game, they have a lot to figure out. They have a lot of things they should take from this game, look at them, have Russ be more of a playmaker. Don't have him play off the ball as much. AD can dive to the rim, LeBron can dive to the rim, even Russ can dive to the rim, but I feel like Russ, when he didn't have the ball, was just kind of standing on the side. I don't know if that's their game plan or just what he decided to do, but they've got to figure something out. because Russ was not being used in the role that he should be used in. There's a better way to utilize this talent that was not on display tonight, and the Warriors took full advantage of that. I don't think the Lakers are doomed by any means. They're going to be fine. Rough debut for Russell Westbrook. He will be better. It's Russell Westbrook. He's a great player. LeBron and AD, if they play like they did tonight all season, the Lakers are going to be really difficult to stop. So those are my thoughts on the games. Let me know what you thought about them, what your takeaways were. I'm super psyched to be back. I love making these recaps. Make sure to like and subscribe. Comment down below what your main takeaway was from these games. If you did make it to this part of the video, to let me know that you made it here. I appreciate y'all watching. I will see you all later. Real One, say it back.